Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here. Welcome to the best gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news channel on YouTube. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation on Android with Citra MMJ, a performance-based fork of Citra. And yes, Citra MMJ just got a brand new update. I'll drop a link to it in the description below. Unfortunately, the changelog on this thing is pretty thin. It says fixes crash when opening up the multiplayer interface. At least that's what Google Translate says. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Wii U emulation on PC with CEMU, and CEMU also got a brand new update and a brand new feature. Now, I would argue that this is a pretty nice quality of life update in terms of accessibility. It says each language name and settings will now be displayed in the respective language. And you can see the example right there. And just a friendly reminder that the latest version of CEMU here is version 2.0-48. And that is the experimental version. The latest stable is, I think, version 1.26. If you're using version 1.26, you may want to consider updating. Next up, we're talking about N64 emulation on the Mister, and the N64 Core just got another massive update. Better performance, more games are compatible, and the audio seems to be better. Video Game Esoterica has a video showcasing a whole bunch of different games working, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. And speaking about a bunch of games, next up we're talking about a bunch of fan translations. We may have talked about some of these in previous videos, but there is one video here on YouTube that rounds up a whole bunch of them for the month of August. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out if you want to see a whole bunch of different games translated and what the end result is. Next up, we're talking about ScummVM, which stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Script Creation Utility for Maniac Mansion Virtual Machine. And ScummVM is being ported to iOS, and they're calling for testers. So if you're curious about this one, I'll drop a link to the website in the description below, and feel free to check it out. There's also a link to their Discord server where you can connect with like-minded individuals. Next up, we're talking about Metroid, the original NES version, being ported to the SNES. Infidelity is added again. They recently ported DuckTales from the NES to the SNES, and also added in a few goodies. And now they're working on Metroid. I can't wait to see this one finished. And speaking about ports, it looks like the original Mario Brothers has been ported to the Amstrad CPC. If you are curious about this, I'll drop a link to a YouTube video in the description below showcasing some gameplay. Surprisingly, it's running pretty well. And continuing to talk about ports, next up we're speaking about Roblox, and Roblox is apparently headed to the PlayStation. They announced this at RDC 23. Additionally here, it's also headed to the Meta Quest. If you're into Roblox, let me know in the comments below. I wasn't planning on talking about this one today. Next up, we're talking about The Elder Scrolls 6. And there have been a lot of rumors out there, and I mean a lot, that The Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be an Xbox exclusive. And those rumors might have been partially started by Phil Spencer. Anyways, here this game came up during the whole FTC Microsoft Activision Blizzard court case, or court battle. And when asked about The Elder Scrolls 6 platforms, Phil Spencer says, "It's so far out, it's hard to understand what the platforms will even be. We're talking about a game that's 5+ years away." Now, based on this statement, I'm getting two major points. Number one, The Elder Scrolls 6 is not going to release till close to 2030. It's way in the future. And number two here, it's hard to tell what platforms it's going to be on, considering it might not be on the PS5. Maybe it's the PS6. Maybe it's on whatever Xbox is next. It's too early at this point to even go there, and saying it's going to be an Xbox exclusive I think is just a complete wild guess. But moving on, and next up we're talking about Linux, specifically KDE, and right now a lot of distributions use KDE Plasma version 5.27 LTS. However, KDE Plasma 6 is on the horizon and just got a release date, February 2024. And one of the big changes here for KDE Plasma, at least in my opinion, is the fact that double-clicking is going to be used to open by default instead of single-click. Now, to be more specific on the timelines, an alpha for KDE Plasma 6 will be made in November. Betas and RCs, or release candidates, will be made throughout December and January. 3 releases in 3 weeks apart. The final release of all 3 major parts in sync will be in February. Moving on, and we're talking about Valve, and Valve seems to be working on a brand new hardware device or an update to an existing hardware device. So Brad Lynch spotted this one and says a new Valve hardware device just received radio certification in South Korea. We don't have a lot of details so far, just what you see here. So I guess just let me know what you think about this one in the comments below. Do you think this is going to result in an updated Steam Deck? Do you think this is going to result in the Deckard VR? And speaking about Valve, next up we're talking about Proton, specifically Proton Experimental. And Proton Experimental just got a brand new update. In terms of games that are compatible, EverQuest 2, Soul Worker, and Welcome to Princeland are added to that list. There's a fix here for not being able to interact with minimum requirements prompt in Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition. And for King of Fighters 15, there's improved video playback. Next up, this is a quick PSA if you've got an iPhone, or really any Apple product that can receive an iMessage. You may want to make sure your device is up to date, and you may want to update it pretty quickly. There's an exploit here that doesn't require you to click on anything. The attacker just sends it via an iMessage. If you wanted to learn more about this one, I'll drop a link to the article in the description below where there's a ton of information on what exactly is happening. But before you do anything, make sure to update your device and then feel free to check this out. And last up here, we're talking about PlayStation 3 on Android. And this is a bit of a troll, but it's not at the same time. It's legit PS3 on Android. And it's legitimately using RPCS3. It's just not going to perform very well. So in yesterday's video, we talked about someone using Box64 to run Cyberpunk 2077 on Android, although it didn't run that well. Well, someone has decided to use Winlator to launch RPCS3 on Android, and they got it to boot. Again, performance is not going to be very good. Unfortunately, as far as I know, this is probably as close as you're going to get to PS3 on Android anytime soon. At this point in time, there are no PS3 emulators for Android. There are a lot of fake YouTube accounts out there showcasing fake gameplay. And there's a number of fake apps on the Google Play Store. There is no real PS3 emulator for Android at this point in time. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you liked this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button. Check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your state.